I need more places on the tabletop to put these wooden bridges, because I want to play Frostgrave in the third dimension, so how can something as simple as an octagon fix this problem? Hello folks, and welcome to Dice Chatter. I think I have inadvertently found a theme for myself. These crystals, this wild hand centerpiece, and my modular board I have created all have octagons. I enjoy the look of them. They cut pretty easily on the Proxon and they can push my game up a level or two. So how can I take such a small section of my modular board and create a useful and tactical terrain piece? I want to make some stone pillars today following the octagon theme, and after completing quite a massive project, I wanted something quick and easy to build. We will create a baseline product you can follow, and from there, we can get creative, making each pillar look unique and become more than just a simple stone post. Though before we begin, we must thank Into the AM, who have not only sponsored this video, but have covered my body in comfortable fabric. And yes, that is a skeleton digging up his pal on a lovely spooky evening. Get unique handcrafted tees like this and many more using the link below, or use the code DICECHATTER at checkout to save some cold hard cash. And even better, your purchases even help support the channel so that I can continue to build terrain and film some awesome battle reports. Thank you, Into the AM, and back to the build. To make these octagon pillars, we first need to cut out some squares on the Proxon. Those specific sizes will show up on the screen now, but I do encourage you to only follow these initial numbers I use as a foundation for these pillars, because in a moment we are going to spice things up a bit so that all of these pillars don't look the exact same. Once you have lots and lots of rectangular XPS foam strips, move the Proxon wire to a 45-degree angle and begin slicing off each corner. I find without some sort of template or jig, this is the easiest way to get a nice octagon shape. Great, we have foam that fits our vision. Let's start putting it all together. All we really need to do is figure out how our top and bottom ends are going to look, as well as how much space they are going to use up. For this example, we have a pillar cap roughly 1 inch tall. We of course make 2 of those, and then simply measure and cut out our center post. And just like that, we have a bold and sturdy 5-inch tall pillar. I find it's best to bind everything together with some hot glue, and I would also suggest finding a way to give your pillars a bit of weight. I just drill or cut out a hole in the center, fill it up with as many metal BBs as I can, and hot glue everything in place. These do a great job giving the pillar a bit of sturdiness on the table, so that if a rogue hand charges in to move a model, the terrain piece will stand its ground. And let's not forget one more thing. For each pillar we create, I want it to not just be an octagon shape, but also give off a ruined and ancient vibe. We can use a foil ball and a hobby knife to achieve this look. Indentations, slashes, or even carving in a few symbols can spice up these pillars. A Sharpie or a permanent marker will melt the foam just a wee bit, and it does a good job portraying an old ancient etching. Of course, I didn't want to build just 1 or 2 pillars. I had to go a little wild. The goal is to be able to use specific posts during different Frostgrave scenarios, and I'm hoping I made enough of these interesting concoctions to achieve this goal. Though we are definitely not done yet. Let's get some paint on these bad boys and add in a few surprising details, so hold on to your butts, or we're diving in. Mod Podge, a bit of black ink, and a touch of water is how we will seal all of this detail in. This is a good way to give these foam terrain pieces a bit of strength, but we of course don't forget to prime everything black as well. While we let all of this dry, a number of brown paints are being shown on screen. These will be our base colors that get used on every single pillar. Mississippi Mud is our first color, and this we will overbrush on each pillar. This is our foundational coat. So let's make sure the coverage is pretty good and opaque. For the next 2 brown colors, each of them will be dry brushed and stippled randomly over the surface of the pillars. Again, these brown paints go on over everything, and we want good coverage, with only a bit of the black primer showing through. Now things will get a bit colorful. Before you are too many craft paints, I will snatch groups of 3 up with my grubby paws, and these triads will be introduced to a slightly moistened sponge. With this sponge, we lightly dab, smear, and spread our 3 colors randomly over each pillar. To choose some of these colors, I tend to find something that is dark, like a deep green, dark purple, purple, red, or blue, and then we snag up another 2 colors that are a few shades brighter. Maybe a vibrant orange, a bright yellow, or a teal. Rocks and stones can be more than just a simple brown or gray, and adding an extra color like this can really give your builds a bit more of a realistic feel. Of course, let's not forget to edge highlight the sharp edges of these octagon pillars with a bright tan color. I find this can be done well with a nice flat paintbrush. Even now, we can start to see these stone columns pop on the table, but I see no harm in incorporating a bit of style from our wooden bridges. Using some scratched and carved up wooden dowels, a bit of hot glue to keep everything together, and of course my steady hand, we can create a neat and interesting look. Don't forget to put some paint on these dowels and add in some thin pearl cotton to portray disheveled rope holding all these wooden beams together. Of course, for a more detailed tutorial, check out my wooden bridges video. At this moment, I'm also starting to realize spackle or joint compound has become another staple in my terrain building projects. Spreading some of this along each edge and connection point of our foam octagons will continue to push that ruined look, as well as cover up any imperfections during the hot gluing process. I do add a tiny touch of water to the spackle, and either with a brush or my finger, we really set in a nice looking bead. And over those carvings we created with that thin-tipped Sharpie or permanent marker, we push in some spackle as well, wiping it away with a paper towel or a clean finger. Don't worry, it looks a bit bright white at this moment, so let's grime everything up and make it look like some proper ancient pillars. I find that army painter washes do everything perfectly when it comes to adding a bit of age to a terrain build. And even though I'm using an airbrush for this step, I don't see why doing this with a manual brush couldn't give you a similar look. The important thing is that you make sure to soak the bright white spackle with a bit of dark color, and think about the areas that have the most exposure to the harsh elements and the habitants of this mysterious landscape. Rock and stone can collect water, dirt, and mold in its holes and pores. This is where the dirt settles, so grime the hell out of everything. After we let all of this dry, we come in with a very light dry brush of the same tan color we used to edge highlight in an earlier step. And I even decide to give one more pass on each edge of these octagon pillars with that flat brush. Now, you could call this project done, but as per usual, I have to add in just a few more things. Telling a little story with a bit of blood splatter is always a good way to portray intense and recent battles, and why not write out a message or two to those fighters on the tabletop? Because someone always forgets when it's their turn to go. And finally, a few skulls and grass tufts always add in a bit more color and detail to any project, and I don't want to skip that step here. Do you want to really know what I love about these pillars? I mean, other than how awesome they look on my Wargaming board, it's that they function well in 2 important ways. They signify what barriers do and do not exist at the table. From below, we can imagine these pillars reaching up and supporting a vaulted ceiling of stone and underground rock. Those models on the table cannot move up, and our tabletop is 2-dimensional. Though if we look at these pillars from above, we can now play our games in the 3rd dimension. I now have more locations to place down bridges, and I can move models over the tops of these stone octagons. It really is a good feeling, and I love that I'm getting more scatter terrain down on the table. Of course, to all my patrons, your support is amazing. I appreciate you more than you know. Until next time, folks, I want to thank you all for watching, and of course, happy gaming.